World War II, spending massive amounts of money that stimulated the economy.
Hartman, can you please stop being an idiot for a while? There's other people I need to get to.
Or before that, the WPA and the CCC spending, literally hiring millions of unemployed people to plant trees all over the United States.
Earlier in the video, his caller actually used the example of hiring people to dig ditches and then fill them back in again. What lefties like Hartman and his Keynesian caller don't understand is that jobs are a means, not an end. The idea isn't to have a job, it's to put food on the table, clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and do other things like go to movies and spend time with your family and all sorts of things. These things can happen only because of the factors of production. Once again, they're ignoring Say's law. Digging ditches and filling them in again doesn't achieve any of the things we want jobs to do. It doesn't feed or clothe anyone. It doesn't make anyone's lives better. It doesn't do anything that would benefit someone's life to the point where they'd be willing to pay them for it. That's why they have to be paid by force, with money stolen from the taxpayers. And I've covered several times how World War II did not stimulate the economy. How could the economy be stimulated when people had to struggle to get basic necessities, either food that was restricted through rationing because of government price controls, or other items that weren't price controlled that were way too expensive because of inflation? The Keynesian statistics make it appear like prosperity because you'd removed 10 million people overseas to fight a war, and much of the production back home was in bombs and planes to use in the war. But again, those aren't things that make people's lives better. They don't put food on the table or anything else. If you remove the government spending component of GDP and just look at private GDP, you see it went way down, and the economy was terrible. The war spending was just papering over it. At the end of the war, all this war spending ended, the production of bombs and planes was stopped, taxes and spending went down massively, and 10 million people came back home needing jobs. Keynesians, just like the caller, predicted disaster. They said that this would cause a second Great Depression. Like every other Keynesian prediction, it was wrong. I'm linking to a paper called The Great Depression of 1946. The title's an irony. The authors understand perfectly well that, far from a second Great Depression, 1946 and 47 were the two most productive years of the 20th century. Read it, and you'll see exactly how the thinking of people like Hartman and his caller goes wrong.
Put people back to work, put money in their pockets, and created demand, which then stimulated the economy.
Anyone who understands Say's law knows why this doesn't work. Okay, they've got money in their pockets, but what are they going to buy? If there's no additional production of things that people actually need, then you're just going to have more people grabbing for the same amount of resources, meaning that these resources are just going to get more expensive for everyone.
And the Republicans get both wrong. They think that monetary policy can be used to stimulate the economy when it shouldn't be used for that ever.
Ironically, Republicans commit the same fallacy as Hartman and the Keynesians. It doesn't work on the demand side, and it doesn't work on the supply side either. Government giving lots of subsidies to companies like Solyndra means nothing unless it's what people actually want to buy, and resources are spent making products that are worthless.
It should be used to stabilize the economy.
Monetary policy usually results in instability. The way to truly stabilize the economy is to let people decide for themselves what they want to produce, invest in, and buy. All this monetary policy does is create a series of bubbles, one after the other.
And they think that fiscal policy is irrelevant, that the amount of money that the government spends should be as little as possible, when, in fact, there are times when the government should be aggressively spending money in a stimulative effort.
There hasn't been one single time where government spending has been shown to stimulate the economy. And the reason why is that it can't. Either the government is going to take money from people who are going to spend it on something else, meaning it isn't spent as efficiently, or at best makes no difference. Or they're going to create the money out of nowhere, meaning that you get inflation and the things that people actually want to buy get more expensive.
And the question that I always have for libertarians and followers of Ayn Rand is, please name one country that has ever been run along libertarian lines.
Yeah, as if this question hasn't been answered over and over and over again. There's even a term for this. It's called pulling a Lindy, from when Michael Lind of Salon.com called this question, which had already been answered a buttload of times, the question libertarians just can't answer. And libertarians responded by answering it again en masse. Check it out. And here's Hartman again, asking the question again and pretending it's never been answered. Once again, Hartman shows himself to be a desperate, pathetic liar.
And there are none.
They tried to do that in Iraq.
What? When was that ever done in Iraq?
And what they were trying to do was prove, Iraq was they thought it was going to be the perfect proving ground. And then they said, okay, Iraq is open for business. And they expected, these idiots fully expected the capitalists from all over the world would go, oh boy, we can go to Iraq and there's no rules, there's no regulations, there's no limits.
Lie, 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 lie! In fact, Iraq is in such turmoil, they can't even get enough statistics to even rank it on the Index of Economic Freedom. But what we do know isn't good. The fiscal score is pathetic at 13.3. Government spending isn't great at 52.8. Property rights are crap at 37. Business freedom is only 54.4. And government integrity is down to 20.3. The oil sector is run by the government, but they can't get the investment dollars to run it properly. People are put in charge of key sectors based on cronyism, not ability. Private sector investors aren't attracted because the prospects are crap, and the infrastructure, managed by the government, is literally crumbling. You claim success when it isn't warranted, like World War II, ignore the times when so-called austerity spending did work, like 1946, or like Estonia, or like 100 other examples we have, and then you look at something that isn't a free market and say it proves us wrong somehow.
And we can rebuild that country and make a fortune. And instead, what happened? It descended into absolute hell.
Government did that. Solely. You're once again blaming the private sector, even though it wasn't given the chance to work, like you always do. Why? Because as we saw earlier, your predictions fail and fail and fail again. Lies are the only thing you can do at this point. Hey, thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe and keep these videos coming by donating, becoming a subscriber and getting special benefits, or even for free with airtime. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.